Hello Serie A fan. With another international break upon us, we take the time to reflect on the demolition derby and the state of the title race, before moving on to discuss the crunch game in Group C. Italy welcomes Switzerland to Rome, and we welcome Mourinho to accept our award. Then Boaz keeps us up with the Italians, and we give the customary honourables, in this episode of Scudetto. Hello and welcome to another international break. It's just Boaz and I tonight as Kenny explores his home city with intelligence. Boaz, are you doing anything with intelligence this evening?
Nothing besides talking to you, of course, which is a very intelligent way of spending one's time.
Fantastic news. And how about beer-wise? Have you intelligently chosen an appropriate beverage?
So my mother called me up they were on a day trip, and she asked me, what are those beers that you drink? And I said, I tend to drink an IPA, and she said, let me send you a picture. And she sent me a picture of a beer that you just couldn't see what the label was. And I said, hey, can you send me another picture? And there was radio silence for a few hours. And today she presented me with this beer. I think there's a typo on the bottle because Marinado is the name of the brewery. And then it says Marinado Ale Beer. And there's no need to say both of those, I guess. But anyways, I'm going to try it, and I'm sure it's very nice.
Okay, sounds interesting. I've gone with one of Kenny's favourites. I say I found this in my fridge. I think my wife or one of her friends bought it, but it's a Brewdog Punk IPA. The postmodern classic, as the can says. And we've discussed before, it's the solid centre back of the IPA.
I saw that Brewdog were doing like a advent calendar for December, and I was very jealous that I can't get one of those here.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll dig one out and then drink all of them on the Christmas special.
It's a bit excessive, 25 beers in that's a beer a day. Plus, the box doesn't necessarily fit in anyone's fridge, so you have to consciously take it out in the morning, stick it in the fridge, and then drink it at 10 a.m. once it's cold.
Drink it.
Sorry, you have to open it and then stick it in the fridge. Drink it whenever you want.
Okay, good stuff. Maybe I'll get it. We've probably got 3 episodes before Christmas, haven't we? Something like that.
Yeah, I forget that we do a good Christmas special at Scudetto HQ.
Yeah, good Christmas party. Let's talk about. We're doing, obviously because Kenny's not here. We're just going to do a mini episode, and also because it's international break. So just a kind of whistle-stop tour through the weekend action and the upcoming internationals. Let's start off with derby reflections, shall we, Boaz? I remember you saying Çalhanoğlu probably not going to be very impactful on this one. How did that one turn out for you?
Demolition derby indeed, and I was made to eat.
Well, that prediction was correct.
I was made to eat my words, although I did kind of say that now that I've said, I kind of accused myself of jinxing Milan, and it worked. Çalhanoğlu came fired up, and before a ball was even kicked, he posted on his social media a photo of him wearing both the Milan and the Inter shirts, thus getting hated by both sets of fans.
It's the player equivalent of the hated half and half shirt. Half and half scarf, sorry.
Exactly. So he did that, and then once he came out to warm up, the Milan fans didn't give him any respite. There was whistles, boos, all sorts of nasty insults. And then in the 10th minute, Inter won a highly dubious penalty, I should say, in my opinion, when Hakan himself seemed to foul his ex-best friend, Kessie, and then claim a penalty, which for some reason the referee chose not to go to VAR for, but assigned a penalty. And then he stepped up himself to take it, despite not being the official penalty taker. And of course he scored, and then he did the ears he stuck his hand out to do ears under the Milan fans. To be honest, I have no issue with him doing that specifically, because Zlatan Ibrahimovic did that when he scored against Inter, and Ronaldo also did it. So it's part of the game. But at the same time, Çalhanoğlu should remember that Milan is not such a large city, and that people do know where he lives, and also they're
that's not a threat from Scudetto.
No, I live far from Milan, but I'm just saying that people crazier than I, or people who might take football a little bit more seriously, might not quite like his taunts. The positive thing is that Milan also has 3 or 4 major hospitals, so at least there's that for Hakan's safety. But having said that,
let's hope he doesn't end up in any of
definitely. I mean, not for maybe for the birth of a child or something positive. But anyways, as we were saying, it became as I said, it would be his derby. Although I thought that it was going to be a negative one for him. His penalty was Milan responded almost immediately with what looked like a Tomori goal, or at the very least, Tomori celebrated like he scored. But it turned out to be a De Vrij own goal. And then inexplicably, Inter were given another penalty.
Yeah, what did you make of that one? It was I'd say probably more dubious than the first. The first, I can see why it's given.
When I saw it live, I thought it was a penalty. I thought that it was a bit of a brash challenge, and also the situation was unnecessary from a Milan perspective. But having been sent several replays from various friends, including Kenny, I'm not so sure anymore. But at the same time, again, the referee did not go to VAR. He made the decision. This time, the official penalty kick taker, Lautaro, stepped up. Fortunately for the red and black half of the city, he missed. And it's actually, there's a bit of a Lautaro issue at Inter at the moment, because he hasn't scored since the 2nd of October. He's had a lot of shots on target. He's been in a lot of good situations, and obviously he had this penalty. But he seems to be failing to get on the score sheet. And there was a feeling at Inter that with Lukaku gone, Lautaro was supposed to be the guy who kind of stood in the limelight. Instead, Dzeko is taking most of the heavy lifting in Inter's attack. So, I mean, that's an interesting dynamic as well, because just a few months ago, he was being spoken about as a Barcelona target when they still had money, and also Spurs and Chelsea. So I'm not sure if he's not liking the Inzaghi tactics, or if it's just one of those periods that strikers go through. But either way, obviously it cost Inter the game. In the second half, Inter came out very strong and had a lot of chances, and probably should have made it 2-1. But as they've done in several games this season, they seem to kind of drop off the pace towards the 65th, 70th minute, particularly because of Inzaghi's subs. And Milan then proceeded to kind of dominate the last 10, 15 minutes. And I have to say that Pioli, who's it looks like his contract's going to be renewed soon, so he's being rewarded for the good work he's done. But it felt to me like his subs were kind of proactive, trying to win the game. He threw on Rebic once Leao was technically a little bit tired, and he seemed to grab the match by the horns. Whereas Inzaghi's subs felt reactive, shall we say? I don't know how that will play out throughout the season, but I have to say that once again, I was very impressed with Pioli, even though the team did not play as well as it could have done.
Yeah.
Ultimately, something I didn't mention earlier, that Lautaro's penalty was not a miss. Well, it was a miss, but
was a great save.
Substitute keeper Tataosanu, who, I mean, most Milan fans, I'd say, don't have too much trust in him, but he got the job done, and it was very impressive, and also to stop the ball right after. So kudos to him.
Yeah, that's what's really amazing about this Milan run, really, isn't it? Just the amount of kind of difficulties and injuries. You're on your third keeper, and he's saving a crucial penalty in the derby.
Yeah, and having just conceded the penalty, so that was also fresh in his mind. Overall, I have to say that although I personally wasn't too happy with the refereeing, there was only one card in the whole game, and that was for the second penalty. A lot of people who don't support Milan or Inter, let's say, said that the game was very high-paced, kind of more European, more Champions League, perhaps even more Premier League style, dare I say. So it was a good advert for Italian football, although there were only 2 goals in it in the end.
Yeah, and like you say, many positives for Milan, perhaps chief amongst them that Napoli also dropped points, although maybe you see that also as a bit of a missed opportunity, a 1-1 draw with Verona for them, and the late red card from Verona, but have to commend them for holding on, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Their recent run of results has been ridiculous. We mentioned it last week that no team besides Bayern Munich has scored more in Europe since Tudor's taken over. To stop Napoli in Naples was quite a feat, particularly as they were down to 10 men, as you mentioned. I think Verona are going to be... I'm glad that they've played Milan now, because they're going to be a bogey team for a lot of clubs to come.
Yeah. And just like sort of very brief roundup of the other games that we kind of previewed, that Juve-Fiorentina won. Juventus did manage to win that one 1-0, so maybe we owe them a little bit of credit.
It was a game that seemed destined to end 0-0, and then there was a red card for Fiorentina, and that seemed to slightly turn the tide in Juventus's favor, but by no means did it feel like Juventus have turned the page on what has been a pretty poor season thus far.
Yeah, and obviously Mourinho's kind of meltdown continues with Venezia losing.
I wonder how long we're going to say that for.
Yeah, maybe we'll discuss it a little bit more later on in the pod, but I think we should really focus this on the Italy-Switzerland game now, because as we've said before, this is going to be the crunch game in the group. It's almost like a playoff, because they're joint top of the group at the moment, 6 games played, 14 points apiece, and the winner of the group automatically qualifies. The second one has to go through quite a difficult qualifying stage. It comes at a bit of a difficult time for the Azzurri, doesn't it, Boaz? Because there are a few injuries and few people that are not available.
It actually feels like more people have been getting injured in the past few days than have been injured for Italy in the whole season, dare I say. It's not been the best of build-ups, and this game is, as you mentioned, crucial, and it feels a bit like a playoff before the playoffs. You may remember the reverse fixture where Jorginho missed a penalty, which could eventually cost Italy dearly.
That was before he changed his technique, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's not doing the little skip anymore, fortunately. But I mean, that was that we could be talking about a whole different scenario right now had he scored that. Having said that, he wasn't the only person who missed chances in that game. And if you have to bet on a team, I think Italy and Rome are they're favorites against Switzerland, no matter what Switzerland throw at Italy. It's a shame that players of the caliber of Insigne, Chiellini, Pellegrini, who's probably the only shining light in Rome at the moment, Bonucci and Verratti will all be missing. I mean, that's pretty much you could build like a decent top 4 team with those players in my mind. But there's still plenty of quality in this Italy side to beat Switzerland, who are themselves going through a slight injury crisis. So not all is lost. Switzerland's manager Murat Yakin threw some petrol on the flames by saying that they were going to... he basically mentioned Sweden beating Italy in the 2017 playoffs. But I think back then, of course, there was a different coach and, dare I say, a bit of a loser. But overall, the mood around the Italy camp was completely different. This time around, I would like to think that Italy will get the job done. And should they beat Switzerland, then all they need is a draw against Northern Ireland away, which should also be achievable.
You think they only need a draw if they beat Switzerland?
If my calculations are correct, they need 4 points from the next 2 games, unless obviously Switzerland drop points as well. So Italy could draw both games if Switzerland then draw their next game as well.
Right, that makes sense. Because I was going to say that as soon as that game's tomorrow, as we currently record, so on Friday night, Italy versus Switzerland, and then they go straight away to Northern Ireland, and that one is on Monday night. Obviously, it depends on results elsewhere, but you'd think they'd be keen to take 6 points from those 2 games is probably going to be essential, I would have thought.
We've mentioned in the past that Italy go through kind of a iffy spell historically during September, and as it happened, the games against the likes of Bulgaria and Switzerland in the first games was in September, and let's be honest, Italy probably did enough to get the points in those games as well, but somehow or other they only got draws. Again, with Italy playing at home, there's no reason for this not to be a victory.
Yeah, for sure.
Just before we break away, I just wanted to add that with all these players missing for Italy, there's an opportunity for the likes of Danilo Cataldi, who's been very good for Lazio and is a youth product there, as well as Pobega, who's on loan at Torino from Milan, to kind of shine through. And something else that I got to say is that Barella, or as we like to call him here, Nicholas Stretcher, he went off with what seemed like an injury fortunately not in a stretcher, but he went off with what seemed like an injury in the derby. But it's now looking likely that he will play. So he's a fundamental player, and it's good to know that at least he's going to be there.
Yeah, another Conte target, but maybe we'll skip the Spurs talk for this week. We should just, as I said, we'll be back with a full-length episode previewing all the Serie A fixtures next week. But just a quick bit of news from the league and elsewhere. That Serie A TV provider DAZN has kind of walked back their proposals to block each subscription to one single device following uproar in Italy. So that's a bit of good news. Pod favourite Zlatan Ibrahimovic back in action for Sweden at age 40. Sadly, they lost 2-0 to Georgia, but I understand from a couple of Twitter commentators that he actually played quite well. Shevchenko has been announced as the new Genoa coach. Didn't see that one coming, to be honest. Boaz, did you?
I didn't either, but with the new American owners there, I'm not surprised that they've made a ambitious appointment. And also he has connections to the United States with his wife, so perhaps there's some link there.
Yeah, and also a study you've dug out for me here reporting that the top 5 of all the top 5 leagues in Europe, Serie A employs the most foreigners. Is that taking over from the Premier League after Brexit?
So the Premier League has 59.7%, I believe, and Serie A has got 60.6%, so it's not such a big margin, but still it shows that maybe clubs in Italy are less willing to give young Italian players a chance. Okay,
and on that note, let's move to good week, bad week. We've already discussed the excellent form of Verona. I think they're a key, they're definitely a front runner for this award. Who else could we possibly give it to? Spezia also won. Juve for managing to beat Fiorentina in what we flagged as a key game, but it feels like it has to be Verona, really, doesn't it?
I think Verona deserve all the plaudits, particularly because they switched manager halfway through the season, and usually that doesn't spell success.
Yeah, and bad week. Now, I know you spoiled the magic of good week, bad week a couple of weeks ago, so that we discussed it before. So me and Boaz have actually discussed that we're going to give this to Jose Mourinho instead of giving it to a club, mainly because Kenny's not here to enforce the rules. And the reason is because he refused the golden tapir again, and we think he deserves it. So we're going to force him to have the Scudetto Bad Week award.
We'll show up at his doorstep with a golden crusted Scudetto award and see if he reacts to that. But he's having, as you mentioned earlier, a complete meltdown in Rome, and the results have been awful. Just 1 win in 7, I believe. But his entire demeanor and the way he's behaving himself is shocking, and unfortunately the Roma fans are going along with him for now.
And on that note, let's go to keeping up with the Italians.
As this is a shortened episode, I'm going to try and rush this one, but Dario Del Fabbro, who seemingly is perennially on loan out from Juventus, was named in the Belgian League's Team of the Week this week, so well done to him. Angelo Ogbonna of West Ham, unfortunately, is out for the season with a cruciate ligament injury. There was talks of him coming back to the Italy setup, so sad news. Coach Vanni Santini, who took over halfway through the season for the Vancouver Whitecaps with the team in deep crisis, got the franchise into the playoffs, so good on him. De Zerbi's Shakhtar went top of the league in Ukraine this week, and like every Milan fan's worst nightmare, Fabio Borini set up a Bertolacci goal, albeit in Turkey, in a 1-1 draw with Galatasaray. Staying in Turkey, Stefano Okaka scored, and he's now currently the top goal scorer in the Turkish league.
Yeah, this section should maybe be renamed just keeping up with the Italians in Turkey. Seems to be a majority.
There's a lot of Italians in Turkey, it turns out.
Every time. Right, let's skip on to the honourables and dishonourables. And I want to start with one for Napoli and Milan, representing Italian football by being the joint and only unbeaten teams in the top European leagues. So
in the world, the only unbeaten teams everywhere. In the universe. World. I don't know about that. I didn't check these stats.
Professional leagues only, or I think there's an unbeaten team in my 5-a-side league.
I don't know. Top Europe, top leagues. Let's go with that.
top leagues. Okay. Your social media honourable?
I'm giving an honourable to Fiorentina's TikTok team, who posted a video of the aforementioned red card in the Juventus Fiorentina game, and they used the sound of Italian diver Tania Cagnotto's one of her dives, and so there's a big splash as Chiesa goes to the ground. Very amusing, and they took it down quite quickly, presumably because they were scared of fines.
I've got also a social media honourable, or actually it's a social media dishonourable, and it's for Tiate's social media manager. Looks like they were logged in to the wrong account when they tweeted, "Bad day, disappointed for letting down the team and fans today. We'll be back after the international break." Then the hashtag for the team of Simon Mignolet. It was promptly deleted and then posted on Simon Mignolet's account. So
genuine.
Yeah, I mean, that's a clear dishonourable.
Definitely.
What else do we have? An 8-year-old warming hearts.
This one is for the 8-year-old striker for Cantera Napoli called Emanuele, who scored a goal, and when prompted slightly by his manager, he ran over to the opposing manager and hugged him. The opposing manager had just lost his mum, and it was kind of a nice gesture in a game which is usually taken so seriously. It was nice to see rivals kind of together on the pitch, let's say.
Yeah, that is nice to see. And speaking of nice gestures, I think we should give one to the Milan fans and their first banner, which was for all of the kind of frontline, for the sort of first responders to COVID-19. First Derby back since the pandemic. I think that was a nice gesture. Unfortunately, Baz, I think you have to give them a dishonourable for the next banner they decided to bring out.
Yeah, the next day, the Milan Curva set out a banner in Milan that said, scoring a penalty in the 10th minute of a match is easy. Going home to an unfaithful wife is not so easy. Alluding to Calhanoglu's wife. I don't know much about the story, but I think when you start bringing people's wives and families in, it becomes a little bit too much. And also, let's keep the tifo to the stadium and kind of move on with life. This comes after me saying that there's everyone knows where he lives, but yeah, can we just be friends? Maybe not friends, but let's not bring people's families into the mix.
Yeah, certainly a bit distasteful and deserved dishonourable. To lighten the mood a little bit, I'd like to end the podcast by giving a dishonourable to Antonio Conte for thoroughly unpatriotic behaviour, I would say. This is the reports that Conte has banned pizza from the Spurs training ground in an effort to get the players into better shape. But surely as an Italian, you need to be introducing a healthier type of pizza rather than just banning it outright.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe he's banning like a specific type of pizza, like the chain pizza, the stuff that's not real pizza by Italian standards.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then I'll be happy to retract. But
also, I wonder what it's like to be a Spurs player and like this guy shows up and you're like, all right, you can't have ketchup, you can't have this, you can't have pizza. Do they react positively? Does it ruin their lives? I'm sure Dele Alli is like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, well, I remember one day Ramos, a former Spurs manager, was absolutely crucified for, I think, he didn't let Tom Huddleston have any mayonnaise or something like that. And this was obviously the sign of like a hardline manager who was out of touch with the players, but now it's Conte doing it. Everyone's happy about it. Anyway, we digress into talking about Spurs as usual, and Kenny's not even here. So I think that's time to wrap up the podcast. Thanks for joining me, Boaz. I think you're once again the only podcast with 100% records this season.
Yeah.
So well done.
No injuries yet. I'm like the Javier Zanetti of Scudetto.
And thanks, of course, to our listeners. And if you don't already, please do subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio. We'll be back next week. Until then, enjoy the football.
Che sta decretando lo scudetto del Milan in questo preciso istante. La Juventus è campione d'Italia. Questa data, il 6 maggio.
La Roma è campione d'Italia.